Good day. My name is Sebastian Zimek. I am here in beautiful Connecticut at Wesleyan University, and I'm presenting work that I've done with my students, Raphael Goldstein and David Baraka, PrivacyFlash Pro. So let's get started. PrivacyFlash Pro is a tool for iOS developers to automate the generation of privacy policies. A common scenario that we see here is that many developers do not know whether they need a privacy policy or if they need one, what they should write in that policy. Laws governing this, for example, the General Data Protection Regulation or the California Consumer Privacy Act in California, have often detailed requirements what needs to go into a privacy policy. That's where we come in. We try to help the developer with a combination of automatically generating privacy policies from the code of their apps, and then also providing a wizard for all the details that cannot be automatically generated. We first do a code analysis of the source code and of the libraries that are included in an app. We send the developer through a questionnaire. You can imagine that to be similar to a text questionnaire, for example. And then ultimately, from the answers and from the automatically detected functionality of the app, we create a privacy policy. You may have heard that there are already existing privacy policy generators, for example, by companies such as Ubenda, TermSfeed, or Termly. What's wrong with them? Well, first of all, they're completely questionnaire-based. So they're dependent on the answers to the questionnaire by the developer. Also, generators' compliance with laws is sometimes problematic. If the generators ask the wrong questions or the questionnaire is incomplete, then the generated policy will also be incorrect or incomplete. And the point that we are mostly focusing here on is that often the generators do not accurately reflect what is actually happening in the app. For example, here you can see 7 permissions that we looked into for a set of 95 apps that had policies generated from publicly available policy generators. And if you look, for example, at the location permission in the middle, we can see that there are 18% of permissions used and disclosed, meaning the app or a third-party library is using the permission, and it is also disclosing that permission. However, there are also 6% of apps out of these 95 that do not disclose that they are using the location permission. You might think, okay, what's the big deal? I'm getting a notification anyways. Once the first time the app is using the permission. The problem with that is that you don't actually know whether it is the app itself or a third party. And if it's a third party, which third party is using the permission. And so that is information that should all go into the privacy policy, and 6% of apps are not disclosing this for the location permission. There are also 21% of apps actually over-disclosing the location permission, meaning they write in their privacy policy that the app is using the location permission while that is actually not the case. And that is problematic because it undermines the trust in privacy policies in general. But as you can see, for all these permissions, we have in many cases under disclosures, and in all cases except one, over disclosures. And the same is true for library use. So how does PrivacyFlash Pro work? It automates the policy generation. It's a browser-based desktop app, so you need to download that as a developer on your local computer. And the reason is that developers are often not comfortable sharing their source code. That's why we are bringing the app to them. Once you run it, it will analyze all the files in your app project directory. This is for iOS apps, particularly for iOS apps written in Swift and apps that have Swift libraries and Objective-C libraries. And it works based on the identification of APIs. Now, sometimes the analysis may not be correct because this is a static analysis after all. And also, some things can simply not be detected from code. And that's why we also include a questionnaire wizard. Finally, when the developer is happy after analyzing the app and going through the questionnaire wizard, they can create a privacy policy that satisfies the accessibility standards included in certain laws, for example, the CCPA, and post that on their website. So let's check a little bit in detail how the static code analysis works. Now, what does PrivacyFlash Pro do? First, we look at what we call evidence. And the first evidence that we find is a plist permission string for location. So we take that. The second evidence that we find in this file is a framework import of core location. The third evidence item is a class instantiation. Location manager is instantiated here. And the fourth item is an authorization method. Request always authorization is used here on the location manager that was created. So this is our set of evidence items. And this is the usual structure that we use to make the claim that a permission is used. There are other evidence items. For example, there are also entitlements that are used in health usage of the permission. And here, in this case, for location, we don't need the entitlements. So we have our 4 evidence items. And then we call that a signature, a code signature. And in the end, when we generate the privacy policy, we include the sentence that you see below. If you grant workout with friends, our app that we analyze here, permission, we may collect and use personal information from you as follows. Location services, purpose, we are using your location to recommend a gym nearby. And as you can see, that is the purpose that is extracted from the plist. So that is the general idea how the static analysis works. And that is true for all the permissions that we are examining here. And similarly, the library detection is also working in the same way. Now, let's get over to Raf. He's going to show us a demo of PrivacyFlash Pro, and then we will be back in a few minutes with the performance analysis. So Raf, go ahead.
My name is Rafael Goldstein, and I'm going to walk us through a demo of PrivacyFlash Pro.
Once our tool is downloaded, all you need to do is launch the application and locate the root directory of your mobile app. From there, our analysis begins. To do so, we look at both first and third-party source code. We first scan through first-party code, looking for keywords in Swift files, as well as other permissionless files that have anything to do with information needed to create a legally compliant privacy policy. In addition to first-party code, we also look at third-party libraries that are installed. While they are compiled within the app, the relevant API calls can be found in plain text and are flagged for later usage in the privacy policy. The goal of our application was to automate as much of the privacy policy creation process as possible. While we succeeded in that goal, there is still a bit of information we are missing to finalize the policy, and that is where our wizard comes in.
Our wizard has been specifically created with ease of use in mind. On the left side, we have user input areas, as well as the results we've gotten from our analysis. While we autocomplete data based on what we found in our thorough analysis, our users are given the ability to make adjustments. Whenever a change is made on the left side, the policy is live updated on the right side.
One of the main features our tool analyzes is first and third-party permissions. Here, you can see we flagged this Firefox app for accessing a user's photos. From there, we have listed the files where we detected photo permissions being used, and then give the option to remove the permission. As you can see, the changes live update on the right side as well. In addition to first-party permissions, we also detect third-party permissions. Here, we can see Firefox is using different third parties that access both photos as well as location. Similarly to the first-party functionality, we provide the files where permission is granted as well as the ability to remove the permission if needed. In addition to each individual permission accessed, we also create a list of all the third parties we have detected in the app, regardless of whether they access any permissions. We also give the ability to add your own permissions if you see fit. In addition to permissions, we analyze various other aspects of the app, such as different tracking technologies like IDFA, social logins, and in-app purchases, all with the ability to customize information yourself. In addition to our analysis, we have made our generator compliant with 4 different pieces of legislation: the CCPA, CALOPA, COPA, and the GDPR. In order to do so, we ask the user various questions about where their users are located, the ages, as well as the application's expected profits and other such questions to determine whether they are under the jurisdiction of the different laws. We also provide the relevant privacy policy related snippets from the laws for the user to read in case there are any questions. This is available at any point within the wizard. Once the user is done filling out the wizard, we supply the option to export the policy directly to HTML code for the user to add to their website. The entire process takes 10 to 15 minutes, streamlining a lengthy and complicated writing process that can take many developers days to complete, if they do it at all. Our goal was to create a tool that would both integrate privacy seamlessly into the development process, while also being simple enough for non-privacy minded developers to understand. Through our in-depth automated analysis, as well as our easy-to-use wizard, we believe we have done exactly that. We hope you enjoy using PrivacyFlash Pro.
That was a great demo. Thank you, Raf. Now, how well does PrivacyFlash Pro work? We examined this in 3 ways. First, we have written our own app with all 13 permissions that we examine, and also libraries that we included there, and that passed our tests. Then we took 10 open source apps and analyzed those as well, both the permissions as well as the libraries. And finally, we performed a usability study with 40 iOS app developers and analyzed their apps as well. And in particular, the way we did it is that we gave them an online questionnaire that they filled out, where they had to confirm whether the analysis of their app was correct. So they did not give us their source code, but rather we relied on their reports. With most of these developers, we followed up via chat or email or call, to explain whether they were satisfied and whether they found any errors here. And here are some of the results from the analysis of these 40 apps. So on the left side, you can see there were a total of 62 permission uses, and there was no false positive detected. However, there were false negatives. So the camera, contact, media, photos, and reminders was detected incorrectly here. And then for the third-party libraries, there were a total of 525 libraries that were true positives. And then we had some false negatives as well, in particular for Facebook login and Google login. Now, as to the false negatives for Facebook and Google login, these are based, we believe, on the different implementation methods for these libraries. We are only looking for those that are given in the official documentation, but there are other ways. And so if developers decide to implement these libraries in a different way, we would not be able to detect those. The same is true for the false negatives for the permissions. For example, if outdated APIs are being used, and that is something that one developer confirmed to us that we're not looking for, then we are going to miss these permissions. Other than that, we're pretty happy with our performance. Now, we performed a usability study with 40 iOS developers, and most developers find creating a policy with PrivacyFlash Pro is easier compared to their previous method. And if you look at this right figure here, there is 1 bar for each developer, and the green that you see is the improvement. So all the green, for example, if you look at the top row, developer number 40 said, it was rather difficult to create a policy on their own, and so they rated it a 2. And with PrivacyFlash Pro, they rated it a 7. So that's an improvement of +5 for creating the policy with PrivacyFlash Pro. And we also asked them, how likely is it that you would recommend PrivacyFlash Pro to a friend or colleague? That is what is called the Net Promoter Score, and you can calculate that. And we received a Net Promoter Score of 42.5. The range is from -100 through 100, and 42.5 is a close to excellent score. Now, I want to say a few words about the big picture. Privacy policies, even if users usually don't read them, they serve as an important tool for transparency. If somebody would be interested, they can look that up. However, in many cases, the policy is not in conformity with what an app is actually doing. We want to establish policy generation as a native extension of the software development process. So here are the main takeaways. We introduced PrivacyFlash Pro to automate privacy policy generation for iOS apps. We want to extend this idea to other platforms. Ideally, the analysis would be integrated into software development tools or software creation tools. And that is what we happen to pursue here as well in the future. So thank you a lot. If you have any questions, we are ready here for you to answer.